Commission on Disabilities meeting for today, September 14th, 2020. And the first thing I'd like to do is to take roll call. And I believe I have to do a verbal.
Yes.
Why don't I start with Mary?
Mary Russo, member.
Then Crystal?
Crystal Evans, commission member.
Okay. And then Robin?
Robin Torpy, secretary and commission member.
And then I'm not quite sure who else is considered members versus visitors.
So you are the members, so you have already, you've completed your roll call.
Okay. All right. And then can everybody else who is on the meeting please identify themselves so that we all know who's everybody?
Sure. Mary Beth McGrath, Director of the Health and Building Department.
Christina Zanetti, ADA Coordinator, Building and Health Department.
Chris Griffin from the Rec Department.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think we are all set then. The first thing that we'd like to do, does everybody have their the minutes from the meeting?
Yeah.
And can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion.
Okay, I have a
second
motion
it.
from
Mary Russo.
Mary Russo. And do I have a second?
I second it. Robin Torpy.
Okay,
Lynn,
all
this
in
is-
favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we all, but I think we all have to take a verbal roll call. So Lynn says yes. Crystal?
Yes.
Yes. Robin?
Yes.
I know you motioned, but say yes.
Yes. Robin Torpy, yes.
Okay. And Mary?
Mary Russo, yes.
Okay. So we have any opposed? We have none opposed, so motion passes for approval of minutes from August 3rd, COD members. So the next item on our agenda is to hear from, I guess, let's see, Christina for updates.
Yeah, Mary Beth, did you have any updates that changed about finances from last time or no?
No, I didn't. We have in excess of $46,000 in the account. I know that they're going through the auditing process now, so they're right in the midst of that, and I wasn't able to get a more updated version of it from last month to this month.
Okay.
Mary, could I ask a question? It's Crystal.
Sure.
Would it be possible to just see for next month's meeting what our monthly revenue is having the parking enforcement officer?
Do you want him to appear before you, or you just want a monthly?
I'm trying to see what the numbers have been by the month.
No, and that's what, yeah, absolutely, and I will do that. This month, they're right in the middle of auditing, so that's what the priority is right now. I wasn't able to get an update.
Okay, I'm just curious to see, because I know we were really low for quite a while until they rehired him. I'm just curious to see where we're trending with parking violations.
Okay.
Okay, so any other updates, Mary Beth, regarding any finances?
No.
Okay, so Christina, Shared Street Spaces Grant Program?
Yeah, so we applied along with our grants writer, Lorraine, DPW, engineering, and myself. And we applied for the Shared Streets and Spaces grant that was put out by MassDOT, and we actually got the grant. So we're going to receive $291,237.50 to update crosswalks, construct ADA compliant ramps, and install signage and flashing safety beacons at both middle schools, east and south, and at 4 elementary schools, the Hollis Elementary School, Morrison, Highlands and Flaherty. So we just got word of that. We got approved for that grant. I think it was last Wednesday, I believe. So that's some great news.
Wow, congratulations. How were the schools chosen, as far as which schools were the ones that were, receiving the grant?
So I spoke with DPW and engineering, and there are a couple of schools that were already scheduled for work just from prior schedules. So those schools were out. I had thought of Ross, but there's already something in the works for that. So the engineering department and myself and DPW just all kind of collaborated together. All of these schools, the 4 elementary schools, are in need of repair of all of those things. They're on pretty major roadways, with the exception of Flaherty, but still it is a pretty busy neighborhood school. So we just came up with those schools together.
Will the curb cuts to the crosswalks at Flaherty, as well as the curb cut at Morrison, be replaced? The one that's down near the school at the end of the sidewalk? Is that all part of this process? Because no, it's not that it needs to be replaced. Morrison doesn't have a curb cut to get off their sidewalk, and Flaherty doesn't have a curb cut at the crosswalk in front of the school. Is that all part of this construction?
Say that again?
There is a lot of background noise that it's hard to hear people. So if you are not speaking, if you could please mute your mic so that the commission members and those that are speaking can hear each other. Thank you.
Okay. Flaherty Elementary, the crosswalk in front of the school has no curb cut at all. And the sidewalk down to Morrison, the end of the sidewalk where the school is at near the parking lot, has no curb cut. So is that all part of this construction that's been approved? Would be to install the non-existent curb cuts there?
I think we're just focusing on the literal crosswalk with the I can't think
It
of
says
the name of it.
construct ADA compliant ramps. Sorry, I have something from Senator Timolty about what this includes, and it's kind of vague. It says construct ADA compliant ramps. I'm assuming that means the curb ramps, curb cuts. Is that what they're constructing?
I would assume so. I can follow up with engineering to get a more precise outline of what work will be done.
Okay.
I'm going to ask if Lynn is still on the line, because Lynn
I am.
You are, okay, because it switched
Yes.
from fire to Lynn, so I wanted to make sure that was you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how that happened, but okay. Yes, and actually congratulations on being able to get such a substantial amount of money to be able to be used at several schools, because I know, the safety has been of concern. And so I think that it's really great that we've been able to obtain such a large amount of money.
Yeah. So
And
this
our
was
district was, I'm sorry, Mary Beth, go ahead.
this was a very, Christina would tell you, this was a very competitive grant, and there were other cities and towns that were awarded. So we feel really grateful to be part of that group of individual towns that were, and cities that were selected for the grant. And that was with a lot of work by Christina, with Jim Arsenal and his team, as well as Lorraine C., our grant and procurement officer.
And we got the biggest amount. So it was really kudos to everybody that worked together. It was a great collaboration. So
Excellent.
it's something
Do you
great.
happen to know when that when the grant will be dispersed, and when potential is it anticipated that the work will be starting to get done in the spring, or are they going to be trying to do something?
Oh no, it's the work is going to be started as soon as possible. So I know engineering and highway are already reaching out to their vendors and their contractors. As far as when the money's going to hit the bank account. I don't really know any of that information, but I could find that out as well. But I did speak with engineering today, and they want to start ASAP.
Excellent.
Yes, Highway said we're going to have a very busy fall.
Does anybody else on the commission have any questions concerning the Shared Street and Spaces grant?
No.
Okay, how about if we move on then? The next item on the agenda is Sunset Lake and fencing.
So you had asked in previous meetings that we seek quotes from vendors regarding fencing around Sunset Lake, which Christina has done that, and she could present the information that she was able to gather from very busy contractors. The fencing business, we didn't realize it was as busy this time of year as it has been, but with COVID, it seems to have bumped up a lot of different projects that people doing around their properties, both commercial and residential. And it was not easy getting quotes for or receiving back quotes from fencing companies. But that was done and accomplished. And as part of that, we thought it was important that we also have the Rec and Parks Department weigh in on this, because ultimately, if this did continue through, that they would be the ones that would be responsible for erecting, maintaining, etc. So we felt that it was really important that they weigh in on what their feelings are about erecting a fence, and then kind of we want to make sure that you are aware of that, and then kind of continue on in the process of whatever might be decided. So Chris Griffin has been kind enough to step in this evening from the Parks and Recs Department. He is the assistant director of that program, to kind of weigh in on where the Parks Department is and the thoughts about erecting fencing over at the Sunset Lake property.
Thank you, Mary Beth. First of all, if I can just ask, just for a little clarification, because this is the first time we've been approached with this request. What was the thinking behind what was the idea behind the placing of a possible placing of a fence there?
I had brought this up because, this is Crystal speaking. I had brought this up because I know several parents of children with disabilities have brought up the safety issues around bringing their kids over to that playground where it's directly next to a parking lot, unlike a lot of Braintree's parks. For instance, Charlotte Rose is in the middle of a field. And, so it's like if a kid wanders off, they're not right next to cars driving in, as well as how close it was in proximity to the lake. And I had heard this voiced multiple times over the past few years in moms groups and discussions around disability and safety for kids that are prone to wandering, or just younger kids in general, parents that might have multiple kids, where, you might be pushing one kid on the swing and your other kid might be running off. So I brought it to the commission as improving the safety for kids, especially those with impulse control issues, often seen with disabilities such as autism and other intellectual disabilities, to improve the safety at the playground there. Also, because a lot of families like to bring disabled kids when the summer concerts are happening at the lake. So it give them a safe, enclosed area to enjoy the music and play. Does that make sense?
I understand where we're coming from with that. We've measured it out, and we feel confident with that playground. Has been there for decades. We do feel confident that it is in a safe spot. Particularly, I measured it out. It's almost 190 feet from the lake. It's nearly 70 feet from the edge of the playground to the nearest parking lot, and that's also the portion of the parking lot that abuts the playground area is kind of an underused area of the people tend to park more over by the beach. There is a fence there that separates it from Safford Street, which which has been there for a good number of years. Obviously the Safford Street is an active road. So obviously, we do, in the interest of, full disclosure, we do think that, the money that could be allocated for this, it is a fair deal of, Mary Beth and Christina, I'll let you go into more details about the estimate you received. It's a fair deal of, it's a fair bit of money. And we would think that there may be some more pressing needs that high amount of money can go to. But if your interest is, ADA improvements in parks.
Do we have any estimates as far as how much? Well, first of all, are we looking for a 6-foot fence, a 4-foot fence, a 3-foot thing? Are we looking for a little chain link? I mean, it all depends on really what we're looking for. If we're looking for something that would just slow a child down from running out into a parking lot, that might be a little bit different than if we're trying to have a 6-foot fence enclosing the entire thing. So we probably should have a discussion as far as whether or not do we need to have a full fence, or do we just need some type of I don't know, something that makes a bit of an enclosure but doesn't necessarily come up past your shoulders, kind of thing.
So Lynn,
Or what we're actually trying to take a look at, and taking a look at what funds we do have available, and again taking a look at what other kind of projects that we have there that we're wondering for ADA compliance, or from other issues, again, what would be the priority for that.
So Lynn, the quote that I got from Thayer Fencing was for a 4-foot black fence, chain link fence, to enclose the play area with a 4x4. He's calling it a pass gate. I'm assuming that's the entrance. The total cost would be $9,900. So that's cost of material, cost of labor. It would be $99.85.
So about $10,000 to be able to put a fence around this area that has a 4-foot wide opening.
Correct.
Here,
Okay.
I have another
That would also close.
Sorry, say that again.
That would have so with a chain link fence that would have a 4-foot opening, or a 4-foot wide opening that would close with a with the latch.
It says with one 4x4 pass gate. So I'm not fence savvy. I'm assuming that is like a pseudo door to get into the enclosure.
So it would have a gate on it, and the gate would have to meet compliance requirements for its opening, the latching mechanism.
Right.
So that's, yeah, like you said, it's $10,000. So
Right. Now, Christina did reach out to other fencing companies, but they never returned her call or provided a quote.
here's a question about the fence though. Is the quote only to go around the playground, or would it include the entire green space with like the picnic tables and other amenities that are right there?
It's just the playground. That's what was requested. That's what we got.
Okay, okay.
So as Chris was saying, that there are other things that are needed down there as well. Inclusionary play equipment, just other ideas as well.
Okay.
So can Chris weigh in on what is Mr. Arsenault and Nelson and your feelings about having a fence around the playground? It sounds like that's not something that you're not necessarily in favor of.
I would say that, as I said, the playground has existed for a good number of years without a fence. We feel confident that, the area around it is, as I said, it's, the playground itself is set back a good deal from the lake itself, from busy areas of the playground. And we do have concerns about, as you said, once the fence is in, we would be responsible, for the upkeep of it. If anything was to happen to it, if anything, that falls on our department. In the ground there itself, it's not level by any means. It kind of slopes down. It's not conducive to a fence. It's as well.
What other, if you had to offer some suggestions, Chris, about other things that may be ADA compliance items or things that would make improvements to that playground, what would you suggest?
Well, as you know, I know in the past it's been discussed, that maybe perhaps I don't believe there's any sort of pathway there at this time, from the lot or from other pedestrian areas to the playground itself. We're always happy to work with you to pick out and install more ADA accessible equipment at any playground. We think that's where any sort of funds allocated, certainly, and it's, as I said, it'll be up to the commission, how you allocate your funds. But we're coming from the position of you're offering to spend, by what you said, you have about 46,000 in your account. That's about, the fence itself would cost about 20 to 25% of what the commission has. And we're here to say we appreciate it, but we would hope, I mean, it's not a pressing matter that we would be requesting this kind of money from you. We think if you're interested in allocating money for parks, we think there are other areas, other accessible matters that can be addressed before a $10,000 fence.
Okay. So just a refresher for the board members or the commission members, the monies in the account that in order for them to be spent, the commission makes an endorsement of an expenditure that would be forwarded to the mayor's office, and in particular Maker Chorus, and he would make a determination on what's approved. So we just wanted to give you a full overview of where the Parks Department is that would be responsible for maintaining anything on that property, and as well as Christina getting the quote, and then you can have discussion and go from there.
Personally, I feel like what's also important in this picture is the information I asked for before about what our revenue is, like how quickly would we rebuild our budget once we spend this based on what our current ticketing is at with parking enforcement. I personally would not like to make a decision about this tonight. I think we need to look at our budget as a whole to see how much revenue are we getting on an average monthly at this point before deciding how to budget what we're working with and what to expect or to anticipate as potential parking revenue. Yeah, that playground I know does not have any ADA compliant play equipment there either. At all. So
I'm wondering whether or not if it doesn't have any ADA compliant equipment, and we have a limited source of money,
right.
whether or not it may be more appropriate to get items that are ADA compliant first, and then determine how the money would be, determine how quickly the funds can be reimbursed into our account, and then move from there. Because in one sense, I don't know the accident rate that is at that parking lot. I don't know the incident rate of that parking lot. But if there have not been any incidents and there haven't been any accidents related to the fact that somebody ran out into the parking lot, et cetera, and the park has been there for quite some time, that perhaps to actually get equipment that is ADA compliant may potentially be a better use of the $10,000 or a portion thereof than utilizing it for a fence and then needing to wait potentially quite a while to be able to install an ADA compliant.
Yeah, no, and
Madam Chairwoman,
what was that?
Madam Chairwoman, if I could, certainly our priorities, as it relates to the playground at Sunset Lake, would be, as I mentioned, if we could get any, if we could partner with you on any sort of funding, or even, through obtaining capital. Our first priorities would be a pathway, an accessible pathway from, the pedestrian areas from the lot to the playground itself, as well as the installation of, certainly to start with, an accessible swing. And then we can look at, once we, then we can look at other items.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, okay, I've got catalogs. I gave a bunch to Kristen Zaccialo a couple years ago from, what's the company? I actually had the catalogs out earlier. Chris, what's one of the big playground companies? The one that has at Hollingsworth?
I'd have to go back. I do remember when Hollingsworth went in.
I think whatever that.
I believe it was O'Brien and Sons.
No, it's the manufacturer that I'm thinking of. Landscape Structures.
That's it. Landscape
yes.
Structures. Yeah.
They've got some really good inclusive equipment. My concern, if our focus at every playground is accessible swings, there's no variety in our community for kids in wheelchairs or with mobility limitations for alternative things. There's other types of equipment that counts as inclusive. It doesn't always have to be wheelchair accessible. Like sensory play is another big one. Equipment that's geared towards, kids with autism, other sensory type disabilities, whether they're blind or deaf. Like there's musical instruments that they have that could just be placed in the ground. They're relatively inexpensive when it comes to playground equipment, and that would bring up the ratios. Well, right now there's no ratio of accessible equipment there at all, but that would actually count as inclusive. Things like that. There's these little seats that you can put in the ground that a child can sit and spin, which is another good sensory input activity for.
Yeah, and I'm happy to report to you. Go ahead.
Just for a moment, I think it feels to me like we're jumping just a little bit. I think what we would have to do at this point is, and I'm sure that there is a lot of equipment that would be options, but what we need, I think, to decide this evening, or what the question was, would be if we have a certain amount of money allotted, do we allot that money towards a fence, or do we want to allot that money more towards equipment on the playground? And once we know which direction we want to go into, then we can go ahead and try to determine what type of equipment would be appropriate for that place and get input on that. But first, we sort of need to decide, are we still going to try to pursue this fence, or do we want to go ahead and use a certain amount of allotted money towards equipment on the playground? Which would be the priority?
My thoughts on that personally would be that if we add inclusive equipment to the playground, it could still be a safety issue to not have the fence. So it's kind of like, I think we need to take a step back. I think we need to look at our income average right now and look at the overall picture before deciding one way or the other. Does that make sense to you? Because
it doesn't necessarily mean, I don't, if we have 40,000 in our account and we're taking a look at one playground, I would hesitate to allocate. We might be thinking, oh gee, if the fence is 10,000 and then we can also get equipment. I don't necessarily think that we should be allotting 50% of our account to one particular place when there may be other issues that are coming up or other issues available. And so, we may need to think of spreading things around, which might mean that if we try to go for a fence and some equipment, that might not be the way to spread as much around the town as we possibly can.
Here's another thought. I know that some of the canopies over the rock and glides were previously covered by a grant from the Christopher Reeve Foundation. I don't know their max limits for stuff like this. However, I'm wondering if we could do this where we request grant coverage to partially cover the cost of the fence. There's also funding through, who's the autism? There's an autism foundation. I'm trying to think of what it's called. There was a run. Yes, there was a run for them this weekend. If we were able to piece together some grants from organizations that deal with disability, including autism, maybe, autism, the spinal cord injury, because we can pitch it from two angles. If we can get the fence covered through autism grants instead, then we can add inclusive equipment with our money, but I feel like it needs to be done together. I mean, the playground regardless needs to have ADA compliance, and it doesn't at all at this point, but it's hearing from some of the mothers of autistic kids in our community about the safety issues and why they can't go there. That's why we're not having incidents, because the mothers know it's a danger. I co-chair the Health and Disability Partnership for Department of Public Health, and the issues around playgrounds and playground fencing has come up in some of these meetings, and the person who's overseen all of Boston's playground access is active in these meetings. And there's another side of this where parents with disabilities or caregivers, grandparents or whoever else, also need fencing at playgrounds to safely take kids in, whether it's that they have their own mobility limitation where they need the child contained in order to let them play, as well as parents that are low vision or blind, or caregivers that are low vision blind also need the fencing for safety. So it's like, there are multiple standpoints. So it's like, if we could apply, because like, I know Christopher Reeve needs some sort of reason why people with spinal cord injury specifically would benefit. So if you can pitch it as, you may have a parent with a spinal cord injury at the playground with their kids. This is a way we could apply for a grant through them to pitch it for fencing as a safety issue for parents with disabilities. Does that make sense? And I'm like wondering,
Yes,
could we take a step
I
back?
think that they're very good points. I do believe that one of the sunshades that we actually got over at Hollis wasn't necessarily Christopher Reeve. I believe we applied to Christopher Reeve. I believe that we actually got it from a group that had to do with skin cancer.
Okay.
And I can't
okay.
remember the actual name of it, but it was to prevent skin cancer because it was not covered. But I think what I'm hearing is that we may need to consider the playground at Sunset Lake as a phased approach.
Yeah.
In which we have to consider that first we might want to get the ability for people who have mobility concerns to be able to get onto the playground at all, because right now, you know, if you have a parent, as you said, that had mobility concerns, they can't even get onto the playground. The next approach or the next phase may have to do with getting equipment there that a children would utilize, and then perhaps moving into the fencing so that we can try to have more time to be able to gain some funding to be able to cover those things that certainly we can't fund all from just, you know, from the one quote, or fund all from what we have at this point. But that may be something to consider, that we take a phased approach to it and improve the accessibility to it, then improve the ADA compliance of it, and then take care of dealing with the fencing issues.
Yes. No, that's when I'm like, and this wouldn't be happening this fall anyway. This is something that would probably be next year. That's when like we've got time to really think through and strategize how to improve that space. But I've just seen multiple parents voice their concerns of wanting to go there, but knowing there was nowhere with the fenced-in structure that their kids needed. There is one pseudo curb cut in. That's how I met you, Chris, when I first moved here. I don't know if you remember, I came into your office and asked for it. There was no access into that park at all back in 2012. I went to Chris and it was there within a couple of days. Yeah, so there is.
Well, I think that
Every now and then I get something right.
Yes, we have to consider some of those things. Robin or Mary, do you guys have any input or any thoughts on the topic?
I was waiting to get a cut through to get in here, but I just, you know, if a gate or a fence is too much, what about some sort of like railing, like a safety railing of some sort, only in areas like, I know when we go to Sunset Lake and you're over near the lake and it's like a long drop down, there's nothing there, and little kids whether they're, disabled or whatever, they're going to run around. Do you ever have a barbecue with all your grandnieces and nephews and everything, and the pool, the parents have to sit around the pool in order to prevent something? I know, Chris, you said that, thank God nobody's ever been hurt or anything. It only takes a minute, and now the world has gone really crazy, and people are just doing things, and there has to be some way, even if there's like, a Jersey barrier or something, just to, if like the fencing is too much for right now, something, I don't know, just something. Just
So your main concern would be some type of barrier between the park and the parking lot, or between the park and the water, or something, or something that we haven't even, like something that's not even associated with the park, but just associated with the lake in and of itself?
The lake, more so the lake, because I almost drowned in Sharon Lake when I was 3 years old, so I just have visions every time I see little kids over near a lake end or something. I just have visions of it, and it scares me. I don't know, it just like, I know kids now, they go to learn to swim at an early age and everything, but it just takes 1 second. And I just don't want that, don't ever want to hear that. And especially with children with, like autistic and everything. I have a great niece that's autistic, and you can't tell her for nothing, and she's low spectrum. And, you just tell her not to run, and off she goes. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because it's so different now. We just want to keep Braintree citizens, both young and old, everybody safe, and even for the elderly too. If they want to go out like walking or in a wheelchair or something, they get too close to the edge to see the ducks in the water. It's something. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just like way off the mark, but that's what I see when I go there. It's so beautiful, and we just want to keep it that way. But there has to be something to do to protect everybody. That's not going to the national debt.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Mary, do you have any comments concerning what we've been discussing?
I think it would definitely be worth our while to maybe, where we have some time, to get a few more quotes. Sweezy Fence, I know they're very good. I don't know if you contacted them, and maybe if we didn't go with the black fence, we went with the silver. My feeling is I would like to see a little more protection around the parking lot. You talk about little kids, but I have an adult daughter that would walk right, she's severely autistic, and she'd walk right in front of a car, not knowing that car could hit her. So I'd like a little more protection around the parking lot. I don't think it's something that we need to look at immediately, but I think it's worth, keeping a discussion going, and maybe getting a few more quotes and see if we can get a grant that would be applied to it. But I think it's definitely a smart thing to do at some point.
So Lynn, can I offer some suggestions for next meeting?
Sure.
So I do like your comment and suggestion about a phased approach, providing an accessible pathway, and then working your way into equipment, and then the fencing. All of the components are definitely important. What I can also do is we'll bring forward a summary of the amounts of monies that are going into the account on a monthly basis, and then also get a report of any sorts of incidents or accidents that may have involved the parking lot at Sunset Lake, just to give you a general idea of what activity the police department may or may not have been seeing, and or Chris and Nelson may be aware of things like that. I think that he would have mentioned it tonight had he been aware of anything.
Yeah.
Because I know that Chris is the monitor at Sunset Lake and locks the gate every day. So
I locked the gate for about 50 nights in a row this summer, so I got to know the area very well. I did, but especially this summer. And if I could, Madam Chairwoman, as I indicated earlier, I'm not, and we're not overly concerned about the traffic in that near the playground. The lot itself tends to fill up, if it even fills up, from over near the gazebo and then moving out from there. So the area near the playground is probably the least trafficked, least vehicular wise, in the whole complex. As to to Robin, to your point, good evening, Robin. A barrier at the lake. From our experience, that area of the beach where there's the large stone wall, similar to what I just said about the parking, that area also is a very low traffic area. People tend to congregate near the stairs that lead into the lake and kind of move out from there. They don't set up too close to the wall. There are some benches there. Further down near that pavilion, there are people who fish down there. But as I said, that area there where you were talking about, Robin, that's an extremely low trafficked area compared to the rate that people use other areas in the lake. So I wanted to put in my 2 cents there. So.
Also, I mean, we've talked about incidents or lack thereof, but the big factor here of what I've heard from the moms who have voiced their concerns is that they don't go there because they know there could be an incident. So it's like, I don't think it really matters so much of how frequent are these incidents. It's that people do not feel that this is a safe spot to take their kids. Kids not necessarily being minors, some of them may be adults, children with developmental and intellectual disabilities, because of the lack of fencing and because they know it's not a safe spot to go, but they would like it to become a safe spot. Does that make sense?
I understand.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to base it off of, like, these are things that parents of kids with disabilities as well as parents with disabilities would look at before even going to some of these locations. There are playgrounds I don't go to because I know that they're inaccessible for various reasons, like, you know, safety issues, especially when my daughter was younger, that I couldn't just go follow her off into wood chips. The wood chips there are also an issue. The last time I was in that playground, I actually sunk my wheelchair. So yeah, I mean,
Well, and I think that brings up a good point, Crystal, is that if we do want to have the area be safe with a fencing, but if what you're doing is enclosing an area that's not accessible in the first place and that doesn't have the appropriate equipment for somebody who does have a special need, then you probably would be fencing around nothing initially. So I do feel that it certainly is an issue to address. But again, I think a phased approach will go ahead and allow us to be able to get grant money and to be able to plan it out a little bit.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that might be something, if there's no materials in there now that are accessible, and you can't get into the area because the area is inaccessible, those things probably should be addressed first, and then certainly be able to address the fencing and other safety issues that may come about, and give us a little bit more time to take a look at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think this should be a rushed decision, but I think so we need to start long-term planning through this space and looking for funding options to make it inclusive for all. Like, from an autism standpoint, these are not kids with mobility devices necessarily. They're the ones that are running. So it's like the surface for them doesn't matter, but I'm like, because this has been brought up repeatedly by a few parents, I was like, I might as well just let the commission know it's been a voiced issue.
Well, thank you for bringing up the topic. And what we can do is, as you said, Mary Beth, we can go ahead and bring it up as another topic for the next month's agenda and be able to take a look at more financing availability, see if we can get any other contacts as far as fencing, and be able to come up with a phased plan that might be able to address all the needs in the area. And recognize that it probably is not going to be something that gets taken care of very quickly, but may take a period of time to be able to accomplish.
Okay.
If we can move on, if everybody's okay with that, we can move on to the next item, which was informational from Christina regarding sensory bags. I know we had a discussion about that last time, reusable things and non-reusable things, and trying to make everything as non-reusable as possible in these days of COVID. But to get a little bit more information regarding the sensory bags from Christina.
Well, Madam Chairwoman, if I could just quickly before you move on, is there anything else
yes,
you need from
absolutely.
me? Is there anything else you need from us tonight, from me?
I don't believe so as far as what I see from the agenda. Mary Beth, do you have any other ideas, or Christina?
No, no, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you
All
all.
right, thank you very
Good
much,
night.
Chris. We appreciate your input.
Anytime. Thank you.
Okay, so Christina, items on the sensory bags.
So the bags are all done. Rob from BEMA has delivered some to the fire department and the police department. He has some in his office over at BEMA. And I believe our public health nurse has at least one.
Yeah, there's one at Town Hall. Mhm.
So those are all taken care of. They look great. A lot of the stuff was stuff that didn't need to be shared. Things that could be sanitized, like there's a sit fit. I mean, that's what I call them, but like the not like a wobbly cushion, but you all know what a sit fit is with like the bumps, and it's plastic. So that can be sanitized when and if needed. So those were all taken care of. So I think we completed, I think he said 12, but he wants to try to make a few more to kind of have fill-ins if, you know, other people need them, just so we can have like a little stockpile of these items for various agencies throughout town.
Does anybody know, or do you know, do we have a protocol as far as who they are appropriate to give out to and who becomes responsible for them once they've been disseminated and getting the equipment back that needs to come back? Or like, is there a protocol associated with them?
Christine, I'll take that. Excuse me, I'll take that. So
Sorry, I just lost you guys. Okay, I'm back.
So Rob went ahead. First of all, I do want to give a huge thank you to Rob Millette. He did a wonderful job, very thoughtful process that he went through in preparing the sensory bags and also getting all the equipment for the sensory bags. It was a long process, especially in light of COVID, because in obtaining some of the equipment, it was not as easy during this period of time as it may have been outside of a COVID event. So I just wanted to send a big thank you out to Rob. He did a wonderful job. And the protocols, he's just now prepared all the bags, gotten them out to police and fire, as well as the public health nurse, and has the few bags in his office as well. And we're in the midst now of putting protocol together exactly as what you have mentioned, Lynn. The other thing too is that the mayor's office is very well aware of the kind contribution that the Commission on Disabilities made to prepare these, as well as Rob and his counterparts at BEMA in getting everything together. So I know that the mayor will be putting out some sort of a press notice in regard to this whole effort.
Excellent. Very good. Does anybody have any questions concerning the sensory bags? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Massachusetts Office on Disability Grant. So Christina, do you have any information on that?
I just started revamping it a few days ago. I applied for it last year. We weren't chosen. So I am going to work with Lorraine to hopefully write a better narrative. We would be applying for a planning grant to get funds to help finish our transition. Oh, I just had a brain fart. A transition plan. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So hopefully, you know, Lorraine can sprinkle some of our grant writing dust on it and make us just as lucky as we were for the MassDOT grant. So it's not due until the end of October. I like to get it in sooner than later. And then once all applications are submitted, there's a timeline of review, awards / decline, and then when you need to get things started. So, you know, fingers crossed.
All right, very good. Thank you for the update. Does anybody else have any issue? Because I believe that goes through all of the items that we have prearranged on our agenda. And I just wanted to just double check and see if anybody had any other issues that, that we needed to address prior to adjournment of the meeting.
I'm wondering, Braintree, when Kristen Zuccello was the ADA coordinator, I think it was 2018, they had the robot scan the sidewalks, the street scan. And I'm wondering if the commission could see the results of the street scan, whatever data the town got.
I can reach out to Jim Arsenal and our chief of staff and follow up on that.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or issues for us to address? I wanted to take a moment just to wish good luck to anyone who has children that's going to be going back to school, or if they are going back to school, if they're going to be staying at home. I know that it's a very big transitional time right now in all the surrounding communities and in the communities in Braintree. And I recognize that there's going to be a lot of juggling going around and a lot of support that we may need to be able to give to parents and be able to give to the people that are working in the school system. So I just wanted to express my thoughts for you, and just making sure that everyone who is taking care of dependents, that hopefully the fall goes well, and that you're able to transition into your year with a minimum of disruption, and with hoping that everyone stays happy and healthy as we move out into this next phase. I guess that is the end of the items, and I'm wondering whether or not we can have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Should we offer public comment?
Oh, go ahead, Crystal.
I didn't hear anybody else identify that there was somebody
There
around.
is a member of the public. I didn't know if he had any public comment to add. Gregory Walsh is on.
Hi, Gregory. I'm Lynn Valancourt. I'm the acting chairperson for the Commission on Disabilities. Do you have any public comment regarding any of the topics that we have addressed tonight?
Group 1, Group 2, Group 1, Group 2, Row, Tab, Q, W, E, R, T, Y, U, I, O, P, backslash, BKSP, Row 2 and Group 2, Row, Chat, Row 1, Row 2, Crazy, yes, no, no. No, no.
Okay.
It was nice to
Thank
have
you,
Gregory.
and thank you for attending, Gregory, and for listening to our meeting this evening.
Down, back. Group 1, keyboard, phrases. Row 1 in Group 1. Row 3 in Group, row, mouse.
I think we're ready to adjourn, Lynn.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. I make a motion
do I
to
have a second?
I will second the motion. This is Kristen.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening, 7:24 p.m. Commission on Disabilities. All in favor? And we'll take roll call on that. Robin, are you in favor?
Yes, I am. Robin is in favor. Thank you.
Okay. Mary, are you in favor?
Mary is in favor.
Thank you. Crystal, are you in favor?
Yes, I am.
And Lynn, I am in favor. And Mary Beth and Christina, I don't believe I asked you that question. So I think we're ready to adjourn. All right. Thank you, everyone. Oh, quick thing though, the next meeting is the first Monday in October. What is the date of that meeting?
It's the 3rd,
The 3rd of October?
I think. Yeah,
No,
don't quote me. But
Actually, it's the 5th.
Oh, the 5th?
It's not,
It's Monday, October 5th.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the next meeting on the Commission on Disabilities will be Monday, the 5th of October? That sounds great. We will see everybody then. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
Be safe.
Bye.
Have a safe day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.